Hi, sorry for the delay. My computer crashed when I started GoToMeeting up, and it's taken me 10 minutes to get it back up again. If you can hear me, can you just make a note that you can? That would be terrific. Very good. Okay, as I said, I'm sorry for that delay. You are hopefully seeing our new DesignBais web page. There's a couple of new features that will be obvious fairly quickly that we're using on this website. We are recording this webinar, by the way, so we will the link to that will be on our website shortly. What we've done with this website is we've got these mouse over positions on the bottom of the form, if you like. So as I mouse over those, various sections on the form are displayed and hidden. And the other thing too that probably isn't immediately obvious to you is that this is running on Google Chrome. This is a cross-browser. This is the cross-browser version of DesignBais. So this will run the same on an iPad or an iPhone or a Google phone, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, all of the main browsers we have tested, and all work the same. All browsers that are essentially W3C compliant will work will work with this with DesignBais. Now, I'd just like to show you the form that creates this web page. So you can see here are the 4 panels, and those 4 panels, if I look at the properties of one of those panels, you can see that it's essentially an image, and the image sits in a DBWS directory, and it's called that. And then there's a hover over image which also sits in the DBWS directory, and it is the cross-browser tile hover image. And there is also a process after. So if I click on that, there's a process after that calls that particular program. I have a Z-index order on an image. And what that does is that just makes sure that image always sits on top of whatever's behind it. So there are various, there are these 4 images, and they all essentially look exactly the same. So this one's the features tile image, and the feature tile hover image. As I hover over it, it produces that color change. There are a number of sections on this form. You can see here that there are a number of on-form reports on this particular screen. And if I go into sections and show one of those sections, so if you have a look at the release notes section just by itself, oh, that's a bad one. Sorry, there probably isn't the release notes there anymore. Rel 6, submit that. You'll see that essentially the Rel 6 section is just an on-form report, and because the on-form report gets filled at runtime, it is essentially just a blank table that can be filled at runtime. So there are a number of those on-form reports that are actually on the form sitting on top of each other. So if I just go back to the Chrome, so as I mouse over those, these on-form reports are being displayed. These on-form reports are all rendered in the after display event, and I will show you how that occurs very shortly. So there's the release 6 features, there's the cross-browser support, there's a brief overview of the DesignBais features, and just by the way, this is DesignBais Release 6. The whole website's created in DesignBais Release 6. This site will go live on the 17th. Actually, no, the 19th of December. This site will go live, and version 6 will be able to be downloaded at that point. So I'll just show you how these mouse over events are configured in the designer. So as I said, there's 4 images, and as I mouse over these 4 images, I want certain things to appear or be hidden. So in sections form now, there is this new function, which is a mouse control function. So you can see as I mouse over this image DBS cross-browser tile, I want to display the on-form report r.browser. I also want to hide the old man JPEG, and the old man JPEG is this one. So as I mouse over this, the old man JPEG is hidden and this on-form report is displayed. As I mouse out of that, as the mouse cursor leaves that particular image, you'll see that there'll be some mouse out events here. So there's a mouse out associated with that particular cross-browser tile. And when that occurs, I want to hide the r.browser on-form report. So as you can see, it's actually very, very simple to create this interface. So effectively all I'm doing is, as I'm mousing over or mousing out of each one of those images, I am displaying or hiding the various components of this form. So that, so as you can see, it's very simple, and this technique is terrific if you want to have things hidden on the actual form that as users mouse over them, you want to just pop up either help text, or you want to pop up graphs. You want to have various options as we've got. If you're building your own website, you can do exactly the same functions as we've just done here. And you can see at the top here there's this r.menu front, and that is essentially this menu at the top. This is an on-form report. On-form reports have a couple more features that make them much more useful in version 6 than they were in previous releases. So as you can see, as I mouse over the highlight, the class actually changes, and I can highlight various sections. And you can see there's the DesignBais logo, and that is the DesignBais logo there. Now you may notice that there is this black band across the grey and black band across the top of the form. That doesn't actually appear on this form anywhere. I'll just explain where that comes about. This particular form, DBI website front, has a style group of DBI website 2. So let me just open up a new page, and I'll go into the style groups and call up that DBI website 2 form. And down here now I've got a body, style and class. And the body, style and class has a background image associated with that. So now all forms that have this style group will have the background body class associated with it. And you can see that this has got images DBWS body layer 2, and that's actually just a very thin sliver of an image, and I'm repeating that on the x-axis. So essentially it will repeat across the entire screen. And it's just got some background color and padding settings as well. So that particular class definition is what is giving me this this band across the top. The advantage of that then is that I don't have to worry about putting all of that background stuff on my form. The other thing that you'll notice is that this form is actually centered, whereas the main DesignBais forms are not centered. So if we have a look at this front DBI website front, you can see there that the form is centered. So ticking that particular option will center that form when I run it. Now, there's a condition on that though. It essentially is the first form that is loaded in a session determines the centering characteristics. So if the first form in the session is centered, all forms in that session will be centered. If the start form, in this case DBI forms develop, that runs this form isn't centered, that way everything is left justified and I can run my side menus. We did have a look at running side menus in centered forms and it just didn't work. It didn't look great. So that's why we've moved to the on-form report style as menu control for website type forms. Right, so we suggest that this form is centered. We use DBI website 2, which then provides the background panel that we require. The other thing that I'd like to talk about too is this include a report for Keypress searches. It's not turned on for this one, but if we have a look at the test drive form, that has an include a report for Keypress searches. Now, Keypress searches are another function in feature in release 6. If I go to the test drive form, one of the things that we've done with version 6 in this website is that we've actually put a DesignBais form on the form. We've made the whole website run with DesignBais. One of the issues that we've had previously is that we would give people a test drive option. They would download DesignBais. They'd have to install IIS. They'd have to install DesignBais. And then they were left with essentially a blank canvas. So there was a training exercise associated with that. So what we thought we'd do now is we would let them actually see how DesignBais works as a product within the website. In the code samples in the next couple of days, we will add all of the code, all of the screenshots that build this website. So if you want to know how to do something, you can go to the code samples and the code and the screenshots will be there. So that way, essentially, everything that we've done, you'll be able to replicate without any issues at all. So here we have a search function. Typically, in previous releases, the searches were this style of search. Now, with the mouse over now, as I mouse over, typically in previous releases, we would have some sort of color to indicate the clickable cells. Now with release 6, you can set up a mouse over style for your searches. So as people move the mouse over a particular field, it can be highlighted or underlined, which is more Web 2 in styling than just having a color. So the other thing that's nice about release 6 is that previously we had a single cell that was clickable. Now you define which cell provides the actual key source for the form, and every field on the form is clickable. So if I wanted to click on that particular phone number, I could click on that and that would return the key as well. We still have all of the search capabilities that I had before. In this mode, we still have, even though this is in Chrome, I still have the page ups and page downs, page up, page down key. I can select a row by putting the number in. So all of those nice functions, as far as keyboard functions, are still supported in this cross-browser mode. So I'll just select one of those, and that's brought back the record. You can see that multi-values are supported exactly the same as they were in the previous version. The only subtle difference is that we decided that we'd carry the color in this release in the cross-browser mode. We decided that we'd carry the color for the headers into these sidebars. In the actual IE only mode, that they're still the original colors, but in this cross-browser mode, they follow that color. So you can see that all of the types of processes that you're used to as far as multi-value events are concerned, so I just hit a function key for search, are concerned are still there. The only difference is you'll see that it is much faster than the previous version of the multi-values. So all of that's still supported. I still get insert rows, delete rows, add rows, and all of those sorts of things, header events, and so on. Now the new way of searching is DesignBais in release 6 has a Google style search, if you like. Now that's why in this test drive page we do have this search capability. So if I key in something there like an A, you can see on the right hand side it's brought up the suggestions for the clients that have words starting with A in them. So if I go ARL, you can see that that's brought up Arlington Country Lighting and Arlington County Service Center. Now the programming associated with that is that there's twofold, and I'll just call the form up to show you how that is done. I had all of this organized before the crash, but I'll just get another. So if I go into Word Index Definition and select the client file, this is a definition to build an index, a Word index in DesignBais. So I'm building it against my client file. Now because I can have multiple indexes against the client file, you can see here that this is index number 1 in the client file. I can click that to get a new index, so that would be index number, it could be index number 10, it doesn't matter. The reason we went an index number is that way we didn't have to store the name of the file in the index, because the index file, you could have multiple files in the same index file. So this client file is going to get indexed into a file called dbfindex2 in this case, but can be anything you like. There might be a selection statement associated with building the client records initially into the index. Do I want to have Soundex included in that? In this case I don't, but if I'd select Soundex, then that will run a Soundex, that will create a Soundex version of the index as well, so that way if you've got, you know, somebody types in Rock and Rick, they sound like, and it will look for it in the index. Now the client file may also have a client history file or yearly files or something like that, so I can select additional files if I also want to build my index against the client file and then the client history and all of those sorts of things. Now because this is a Word-based index, you can select the fields within the file that you want to index. And what it effectively does is it combines all of these values into a Word index. So in this case I want to index the dictionary's client name, street address, suburb and postcode. I want the client name to be alpha only, which effectively gets rid of numbers and dots and all of those sorts of things. I want to modify the case to uppercase, and I do that just so within the index we don't have a lowercase a and an uppercase a meaning a different thing. But if you actually want to do that, then you can just leave that alone and there won't be any modifications at that particular point. So I'm looking at, I'm indexing the client name, the street address, the suburb and the postcode. When I display the results of any index searches, I am going to display the client name, the street address, the suburb and the postcode. And if the value that I have entered is found in any of those, I want to make that found value a particular color. And one of the things that I'd like to stress here, for performance we just do a replace of colors. So if you keyed in a color, say red there, that's probably a bad idea, because if your client had, was Red City Spares or something like that, then that would find the red in that. So I encourage you to use the hex style colors, and that means that unless your customer is called #31A30D, you're not going to have any problems. So in this case, you can see I've got an ampersand NBSB semicolon there. I've just put a hard space to concatenate the suburb and the postcode. So the box that will display against this particular, the window showing the results will have the client name on a single line, the street address on a single line, and the suburb and postcode joined by a space. Now there's some display classes associated with this word index. The display class says, how do you want this? How do you want these results to be displayed? And I'll just show you that here. You can see there that is the font that is being displayed here without the mouse over. Then there's a selection class, which is in this case DBV6 display selection class, and these are just set up in style definitions the way you would set up any style. So what that means is that as I pass over these, that actually highlights that particular row, if you like, and that is the selection class. So in this case, I've just got that background as that greeny blue color. And then you've got the title class, which is showing there's a mouse off function there too, which removes that, which is actually showing this title. One of the things that you can do is you can have multiple indexes being searched from a single point. This allows you to have effectively a glossary for your entire system, all put against a single search prompt. So I could have, in this case, my clients, I could have my creditors, I could have street addresses, system functions, so cash receipts, stock control, all of those sorts of things, all indexed. And then when the user comes up here and keys in, say, cash receipts or just cash, then I can search against all of those indexes, all those index definitions, and just present and then present the various results. And if it found, in this case I only have client suggestions, so it'll come up with client suggestions. But if there were more, underneath here it could say application suggestions, where it might have cash receipts and things like that match the search pattern. Now I can target this. Search. At the moment, this is targeted just to the client name, and I'll just show you how that works from a program point of view. Again, I had this opened before my system crashed, so I'll just open it again. So this is the website program, and this is the one that will be on our website, and it effectively is 900 lines long, and that's built the entire website, all of the test, all the various pages that you see, all of the on-form reports is built in this. But we'll just have a look at the Keypress function to start with. On this particular form in this search, and I'll just go to that form eventually. I will get to it. So against this search button, typically if there's been a change event or something like that in a program, on a field, you would have a process after and an on change, tab out, call the program, and then there would be a validation event. But in this case, I want to say on Keypress. So whenever there is a Keypress on the browser, I want to call this program in this case. Now, one of the things that we have done in this version, which I think makes it much more usable, is there is actually a delay before sending the character. So if I type in ARL like that, the system will wait 300 or 400 milliseconds before it actually sends the request. So that gives me the ability to type in ARL like that, before the system then makes the hit. So that way I don't send every single keystroke. So it just makes this react much better, and that's the same processes as the Googles and the Bings use. Right, so there's a Keypress event. So I'll go to my program. Sorry for the flashing screen. So Keypress event. So case the screen is the test drive screen, and the event source is DBC search key. So just to check that, there is the search, and the event source is DBC search key. So that's the particular part of the program that I'm after. So here, if the length of DB value, in other words, if the user's entered nothing, call dbi.g.display drop, and that basically drops the display form, gets rid of it altogether, and return. Don't do anything else. So if we have a look at that process now, as I said, if I lose focus on the screen, these things are designed to go away. So if I go back and remove that report there that is shown up is gone. Now, I'm just setting pass value equal DB value. So the DB value that is being passed is essentially what I've entered. So now I'm passing, I'm calling dbi.g.get dbfindex, and I'm passing dbclient1. Now remember from the word index definition, it was called dbclient1. I'm passing pass value. I'm returning key list. So key list will give me the list of keys that match the value that was entered. And I'm saying I only want to do this for a depth of 20. And typically that's all you would do. You would do somewhere between 10 and maybe 30 as a return. Anything more than that is you're not going to get, it's not going to be responsive enough, and it gives the users just far too much choice. It's much faster for the user to type in Fred and then Fred space S to get Fred Smith, and then return a small value of a small number of Fred Smiths. And you can see here that what I'm saying is, in this last parameter for this get dbfindex routine, is that this pass value is targeted to the client name. So what that means is, when I run this particular, so if we look at this index definition, that means that it is targeted to just that portion of the index definition, which is really nice if I've got multiple fields and I want to have the first one being a client name lookup, and then the second one I say, because I might have a million clients, I want to say I'm looking for Fred Smith, so target the first one, and then in the next field I want to put a suburb in there. So Fred, suburb. So Fred Smith, New York. So that will target then the first one to the client name, and the second one I can target to the suburb. Now, if I want to remove that targeting, come back to here, I'll just comment that particular line out. Oh, and by the way, there is another routine called display dbfindex. So you've got a choice there. You can use get dbfindex to get the list of values that suit the particular entry, and then if you want to, you can use dbdisplay dbfindex to display that list using the DesignBais standard routine, or alternatively you could use some other routine here that is your own index routine that'll go off and find the matches, and then use display dbfindex to display the values, or alternatively you can use ours to get it and your routine to display it. It's entirely up to you. These display parameters give you the row, column, length and depth and width parameters for the box that will be drawn. So in this case, the display indexes say display the index associated with dbclient1 with the pass value that was entered, the key list, so this gets passed from this get to this display routine, the various display parameters, and the client name. So what we're saying here is the pass value, the actual value that was typed in, is targeted to just the client name. So that way it will only update the values. So if I come back to here and type in AL again, you can see that it's just updated AL in the client suggestions. So if I get rid of that now and say, well, I'm not going to target that entry, I'm going to have that as anything, so I want the value that was entered to be searched against any of those fields, so the name, the street address, the suburb, and the postcode. So get rid of that, and in the display, I also want the display not to be targeted. So I compile that, come back to here. So you can see now that it's starting to highlight the letters in other names. So if I type in VAL now, you can see that that's found Valley Forge and also Valley Falls. So it's found the suburb there and the name there. So that gives me the ability to provide a really targeted search or an open search. So this is an open search, so say find anything in my indexed fields that match that. Now if I had multiple indexes, which I don't in this particular example, but if I did, all I would need to do is I could say, I'll just grab that. So I could say, index lookup, don't worry about the lowercase, equals that, value mark, let's say I've got the debtors version, the creditors version as well, creditor *6, so that's the 6th index. I might have system functions, so I might have DBI forms *100, which is looking at our forms index and pulling all of the names and stuff out of forms. So what that would do then, if I put index lookup into this part here, that would run that index routine and get everything across those multiple indexes, and then return the values. And the key list then would have DB client *1 and the dictionary. And the key, DB creditor *6 and the key, and so on. So you know in your program when you're dealing with those where things come from. And it also means then when I pass this to the display dbfindex using the same mechanism, the lookup control then here will have the ability to have different display classes, different titles, different colors for each of the return values. So I can provide visual cues to the user. So let's say all my application names, I put the found color there as some sort of red. Then the users have a visual cue as to what part of the system they're looking at. So it's a nice way to essentially remove all of your menus if you want to and provide the user with a single field. For those people in Australia, we actually call it, we've written this into the insurance application, and we call it the Ned Kelly interface, because essentially you've got this one sort of tunnel vision, if you like, into the system. It's like wearing Ned Kelly's mask, I suppose. So let's have so that's that particular function, and as you can see, it is actually very easy to implement just with these with this depth of code, that number of lines of code. You can add that to any screen. Now, how do we then, when the user selects one of those values, so in this case if I bring up one of these and click on one of those, that's brought back the client. How do I do that? How do I make this form function that way? That's actually what I've got on my form here is a hidden field, and it's called DBC Key Part 1. And you'd see down here the controlling field is also DBC Key Part 1. So what happens is that whenever I add this index to a form anywhere in the system, I need to have a field on that form named DBC Key Part 1. When the user clicks on that, in this particular case, I'll go back to here, when the user clicks on that particular field, it'll call db.i.dbi website as a validation event. So if we go to the program and have a look at validation, I've changed it to validate. So if the screen number or name, whatever you like to call it, is test drive, if the event source is DBC key part 1, the client code is field of DB value part 2. So then I'm going to DB pass DB value to client that equals the client code, and then I'm going to pass that to the client code field, and I'm going to get rid of the box. Display drop. Set the search key back to null, so that way I don't leave any remnants of what was keyed in there. Just clean it up, it makes it neater, and then it's easier for somebody else then to come in and type in something else, and then bring up another client. And I've also set the DB return field to the client code, so that way the cursor sits in the client code and the user then can tab through and do whatever they like. Okay, so as you can see, it's very easy to implement this function into any of your existing screens. What a lot of our clients that have already implemented this during the beta phase of Release 6, what a lot of our clients have done is they've actually built a header form, and I'll just explain that. This particular form doesn't have one, but we've got a header form include and a footer form include. And what that means is that I can create a standard form called my application header, if you like, and that always has a search bar on it. So in the top of every form, I could have a search button. So that way that gives the end user the window into the application, complete application for all the searches and everything, from any form. So a lot of the clients that have beta tested Release 6 have done just that, and they have searches in the header form. Using that word index function that is within Release 6. I do want to go back to now some of the other features that we've implemented. So you can see here, you know, the biggest feature, I suppose, is cross-browser, and that's been a monster job. Some of the browsers do some weird things, but we've managed to get consistency across all of them. I'll just have a quick look at the way that this particular function, where we mouse over this particular on-form report, how that is achieved. So I'll go into this DBI website program again, and we'll have a look at screen number. If it's front, so this is the front screen, go and build r.menu.front. So this is the on-form report program. So this lump of code here, these 20 or 30 lines, are responsible for building this menu. So I'll just go through that. There is actually two variables at the top, which is the screen list, which is the forms that are run. So DBI website news is the name of the DesignBais form that gets run whenever the user clicks on the news option. So if I come here and click on news, you can see that's run the Release 6 news form. If I click on the overview, that's got the overview form, the samples. That's showing me some examples of forms that have been generated. Testimonials, likewise, the various testimonials. Oh, by the way, the samples page, I can click on those to show the various examples. And this is a modal form. This is the equivalent of the previous versions and the IE non-cross-browser version, if you like, modal form. It is actually a layer that is drawn physically on the form. You can move it the same way as you would move forms in the previous releases, but it is actually part of the main form. So I can refresh the browser. I don't have to close the windows to get to gain control of refresh buttons and things like that, but everything behind it is still disabled. I still can't get it at access to the form behind it until I actually close the form. So it works exactly the same way as the standard modal forms. But I don't know whether you can notice because you're on the other end of a GoToWebinar, but it is also much faster because there are all these forms events now are single form events. So effectively, you get a click event that hits the server, and we supply in a single response back with all of the form details, with the drawn form and all of the after display events and all of those things have already run. Whereas in the previous modes, there might be 2 or 3 hits to the server that are involved in that because we're physically opening a separate window. Okay, so we're looking at this on-form report now. So that's they're the various forms that get run, DBO website, the testimonials, the test drive, and the downloads. So if we have a look at this routine now for this RDOT menu front, exactly the same sort of functions, output report, output attribute that you're used to, but now there is a new one called output mouse over. And you can see here that I'm setting output mouse over to be, for a particular column, to be the mouse out, the standard display value and or class, and the mouse over class. So they are just 2 styles that were set up in the style definition. So if we just look at one of those briefly, I'll just go to the style definition, have a look at one of those. You can see that it puts the cursor pointer on, it sets the border style to none, and it puts a background color, text align center, vertical align center, and height 50 pixels. So that is essentially building that style. So whenever I mouse over something like that, that is then applying that style via that function. So it's very easy from a code point of view to have those mouse over functions controlled. And you can see here DB store 1 is actually the selected value. So if I'm saying in my loop, because there's 7 items on my menu, and that's the width list that's associated with that, there are 7 items on my menu. If DB store 1, which is the value that has which one is the current one, if that's not equal to the loop, then do all the mouse over stuff. If it is, then the class equals, so instead of saying output attribute equals background color, green, font family, this, border style, blah, 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 and all that, I've just given it a straight class definition of DBWS menu action. And if we have a look at that style, similar sorts of things. So I've got a background color which is transparent, and down somewhere here that's the actual foreground color, which is just sort of that white with a yellow tinge, which is this one here in this samples page. So you can see there are no mouse over events or anything associated with that because that is the actual selected one. So as I go back to home, that's moved that there. It's set DB store 1. And it's rebuilt that particular on-form report that sits on the top. So I just go back to the program. I set process refresh to RDOT menu front, and then I'm setting my on-form report spec as being RDOT menu front. Set the background color as transparent, and the reason I'm setting the background color as transparent because I want the background associated with my form body class, which is this black image, to show through. I don't want to have the black image to there and then some other function. So I've set the background color to transparent, and I've set the border style to none at that particular point. So what that's saying is for the container RDOT menu front, set the background color and the border style and transparent, and that is that simple. Now, the next thing with on-form reports, if I run DB client demo base, which is just another form this is just in the normal commercial grade mode. It's an ugly form, but it's really just to demonstrate a function. This is an on-form report. I've got a checkbox there to click so I can select multiples, and that's just using the background image. And that's been available for many releases, but this is an input field. in the on-form report. Now this input field doesn't really have the same input control as all of these main forms. This is essentially a you look after field. So it'll effectively just, when I enter something here, it will give me an on-form, it gives me the ability to call the program can validate the entry, and I'll just show you how that is done. Sorry, this is another program that I had open before the crash. So I go to report, right, if r.sales and column equals 4, so this particular report is r.sales and the column is 4. Sorry, where'd it go? There it is. If not num db value, so db value is the value that was entered, I'm setting db ds not a valid number, and I'm using db report update to re-update that particular value in that cell with what was there beforehand. Otherwise, if it is a valid number, do the various icons and OCOMs or whatever you want to do to format that. Set db report update 4, which is the value associated with that particular cell, and then store the value somewhere in a store variable. So it won't get put into db work unless you want it to. It won't get put into db record. It basically is just in it is just essentially in whatever variable that you want to put it into, and I recommend db store because it'll be there for all. Somebody has asked a question, can more than one column in an on-form report have an input field? Yes, it can, and that is basically controlled by, I'll show you this build r.sales routine. Here, I've got this variable called output.ty, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 value marks and an I, which basically means that the 4th column is an input field. If I leave it blank, it's just the way it was. I can leave the whole thing blank, and down here somewhere, output type equals output ty in this case. So what that means is, in this case, every 4th column is going to be an input field. If I wanted to make the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th columns an input field, I would just add value mark I, value mark I, value mark I associated with that. So that's how that is done. I'm sort of trying to get through as much as possible in a short period of time. One of the things that I want to have a look at, we've done the mouse overs, the forms design, and the mouse over events. We also have, and I won't actually show this, but we also have another. There's another variable, and I'm just showing effectively the key variables that are in this particular release. We have another variable called DB enable field, and this is something that has been requested from a number of sources. You might have a situation where you've built a form and it's got sections, and the sections are lovely, and everybody's happy with the fact that you can collapse sections and hide and enable and all of those sorts of sections in a form. But a particular customer that you sell your application to says, look, I like this, but I don't want anybody to see that particular field on the form. So you can do that with lockdown if you want to. So you can use the DesignBais lockdown feature to do that. But if you want to do this more from a global level and you want to actually do it programmatically, you can now add DB enable fields, so which gives you the ability to enable, disable, or hide a particular field or groups of fields on the form. So section logic will all apply, and then right at the end, the DB enable field will take control and then change things. So it's just a nice way to allow extra program control to your your screens. We also have a file, and I'll just start up my telnet session again because that also crashed on me. So I'll just open that up. I just want to show a couple of other files. So if I list DBI user log, if there is a file in my system called DBI user log, DesignBais will log usage of users of particular forms and the hour of the day, the date and the hour of the day. That's also, we've created that because a number of users, a number of sites have requested that. So and there are these user log reports. So I can see, let's just look at the last couple of days. I'll run this report. And this is quite a large file, so it might take a little while. So you can see now there's me as a user, and this is my usage over periods of time. This is the number of hits that I've had on the 12th of the 12th. These dates are in Australian format for those American viewers. So you can see that we've grouped between 0 and 6 a.m. and then from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then we've grouped 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. So you can see that there were 6 hits at that particular point in time. So that way you can see what sort of load you're getting on your system at particular parts of the day. And these are the total hits. Now, what a hit is essentially is a server hit. How many times the server was hit from a particular user session. And that gives you an idea of activity, how active the users are at particular times of the day. And there are various reports, date by form. And again, these are quite lengthy reports. So these are the various forms that are now. There are some forms, obviously, that were in some sort of test mode that actually don't have descriptions. But this is showing the various forms and their hits in particular days. And I can run this by individual forms. So if I want to know what sort of activity I have in particular forms, I can run this by particular forms to get the various values associated with that. And then this next one, I'll just run that one as well. So this is showing me, actually this looks like it might be the first one, date ranges again by user. Now what I can do with this print mechanism now, or this actions, is I can say convert to PDF, run that report to PDF, and that's the report in PDF version. So, sorry, it's just somebody's just pointed out that the report heading. Anyway, I'll come back to that. So convert to PDF is there. We still have all of the cabinet processes associated with reports. Now, if we go back to our website then and have a look at the test drive page, there is a customer listing here. So I click on customer listing. I'll run all customers, and this is on a very slow server as far as output is concerned, so it might take five seconds to run this. So there is my customer listing. This is just a normal, your typical report process. Again, this is the cross-browser version. We have to convert to PDF in the cross-browser conversion, as we do in the non-cross-browser, in the normal version. So all functionality is shared. Now, with printing in the cross-browser version, that can be difficult, because in IE it's very easy, because you can, as you know, we've got the printer control that is actually an ActiveX that we install that makes printing easier. Cross browsers that get difficult. So what we've done is in the print mechanism for this, we actually open the page as a printable page, and then the user can choose to print it at that point to their preferred printer, so color or black and white in the case of Google, whatever the browser supports as far as printing is concerned. And it's all been paginated as you would expect it to be, so it will use the standard default. So you've still got in this cross-browser mode the same sort of printing capabilities, though it's just not quite as elegant as it is in the IE version, but it is still as capable. You've still got the XLS transfer. You've still got all of the email reports to self functions that you would have normally. There is also another function, and I'll just there is now if you have created a file called DBI Global, if you don't create the file, there's nothing happens. But if you create the file, DesignBais will look for a read-write item. And if there's a read-write item in the global file, DBI Global read-write, you can see there that there is a program, in this case db.i.db client, but it'd probably be something a little more formal in your application. What that means is that every single read and every single write that DesignBais does goes through to that particular program. So that way you can log every single read, every single write in the system. If you have some sort of requirement to audit your system, that allows you to plug in with one simple entry, plug in every single read and write in the system into that particular process. There are some more common variables that I won't go into now, because we've hit roughly the hour. Are there any questions? So I'll just leave a couple of minutes for people to ask questions. No? Somebody's just asked when the next webinar is. There is a webinar schedule. If you have not received the schedule, send us the just send us an email to support@designbais.com, and we will send you the schedule. We're running webinars right through the rest of December and early January. They are all being recorded. They will all go on they will all be posted on YouTube, and we will have the links to those on our support page on the website. Somebody's asked, how do you set up the search box on a form? That's this particular? I'm assuming that Martin, you're asking about this particular form, this particular search box, and that one is, I'll just go back to that site if I can find it, Forms Designer. So that's on the test drive. That is, sorry, wrong form, wrong file, DBI website, going to the designer. That search box is essentially just an input field. It's just an input work field that I've called DBC search key. When the user hits any key, call this particular program with the Keypress function, and that's how I set up the search box. And as I explained within the code, in the Keypress function, call the get index routine to get the values and then display it with the display index. Martin, if that's not clear, I'm happy to show you that. Somebody's asked, how did I get the shading on the log reports? Okay, I'll show you one of the log reports. Well, there's the shading of the actual rows, and in that case, sorry, I'll just call it one individually. You can see that this is just a box, and it's got a line color of, in this case, a grey, and it's got a background color of grey. And because we started in the column header or the header section, this is not length. This doesn't look at the actual length. It doesn't come into the length calculations. Whereas the detail sections, this detail section calculates how deep the detail section is. And if I had this down here in the detail section, each line then in the detail section would effectively be the length of this. But because it's in the column header, it doesn't come into the length of the length calculation, so that gives me the ability to have this shading. Now, if we have a look at the, I showed you the client report, DB client, I think it's called the website report. Here there is this shading bar behind the detail line, and that is just a box, another box that has a background color of ease in this case, and that's a lighter grey, and a background color, the line color and the background color are the same, and I'm going to repeat this every second line. So I want it to start in the first line, pardon me, and repeat every second line. So when I run this report, oh, that's just the, it's inherited the background colors. You can see that that is showing the grey line on the first line and then repeating it every 2 lines. Somebody's asked, is the webinar recorded? Yes, it is. Please make I think that's probably it. I don't think there's any. I think I covered all of the questions that were asked. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. And if you like what you saw, tell people about it. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you. Bye.